They told you being smart was the greatest gift you could have. They told you intelligence was the golden ticket, the one thing that would guarantee you success, happiness, and respect. But they never told you about the curse. They never told you how being smart could slowly poison your life from the inside out. And if you're not careful, it will. See, there's a hidden trap that comes with intelligence, one so invisible you might not even notice it's there until you're already in it. It starts small. A thought here, a choice there. You get used to seeing the world differently from everyone else. You start to see patterns others don't. You figure things out faster. You anticipate problems before they happen. Overthinking is one of the most subtle and destructive traps that intelligent people fall into, and it often feels harmless at first. When your mind works quickly, you can see patterns others miss, anticipate possible problems, and map out scenarios in impressive detail. This ability is valuable, but it comes with a hidden cost. The same skill that helps you solve complex problems can also become a weapon you unknowingly use against yourself. You begin to treat every idea, every decision, and every dream as a puzzle to be solved rather than an experience to be lived. What starts as careful thinking turns into constant hesitation because you are always finding another reason why now isn't the right time or why the plan isn't good enough. You replay conversations in your head, pick apart every move you make, and analyze outcomes that haven't even happened yet. The trouble is, when you can think of dozens of potential pitfalls in any situation, the risks start to outweigh the rewards in your mind. Your brain convinces you that you're being realistic, when in fact you're just afraid of imperfection. You look at a possible opportunity, and instead of feeling excitement, you feel caution. You see the loopholes, the what-ifs, the things that might go wrong. Your intelligence arms you with such a long list of reasons to hold back that you talk yourself out of acting at all. This isn't laziness, it's self-sabotage disguised as careful planning. The smarter you are, the more persuasive you are, especially to yourself. You don't need anyone to discourage you because you can do it better than anyone else. You know exactly which fears to touch and which doubts to amplify. You win the argument against your own dreams before they've had a chance to exist in the real world. And because you have the evidence, the reasoning, and the logic to back it up, your decision to stay still feels justified. But while you're analyzing, life is moving forward without you. Opportunities are like windows, they don't stay open forever. By the time you've thought through every possible angle, the moment has passed. Someone else, maybe less experienced or less ready than you, has already stepped in and taken the chance you were still thinking about. That's the cruel irony. The people who succeed aren't always the smartest, they're the ones who act while the smart ones are still calculating. Overthinking also drains your energy. Mental effort takes a toll, and the more you replay scenarios in your head, the more mentally exhausted you become. This leaves you with even less motivation to take action. It's like running on a treadmill at full speed. You're expending enormous effort, but you're not actually going anywhere. And when you finally stop, you feel tired, but you also feel guilty because you didn't accomplish anything tangible. That guilt often fuels even more overthinking, creating a cycle that can last for years if you don't break it. Another side effect of overthinking is that it distorts your perception of reality. The more you dwell on potential problems, the bigger they seem. A small obstacle can start to feel like an unscalable wall simply because you've stared at it for too long. Your imagination, which is supposed to be your greatest ally, becomes your biggest enemy. Instead of using it to create possibilities, you use it to create fears. What makes this cycle dangerous is that it's comfortable. It feels safe to stay in your head because as long as you're thinking, you can't fail. As long as you haven't acted, nothing bad can happen. At least, not in the real world. But nothing good can happen either. And that's where the real damage is done. Perfectionism for highly intelligent people is like an invisible weight that they carry everywhere. It doesn't feel like a flaw at first. In fact, it feels like a sign of excellence, a badge of pride. You tell yourself you're simply holding yourself to high standards. But over time, those standards become so high that they are impossible to meet. You set the bar not just above average, but somewhere so far out of reach that even your best efforts leave you feeling unsatisfied. Every project, every task, every goal is measured against an ideal version in your head, a flawless version that no one could realistically achieve. This creates a constant state of restlessness because no matter how much you accomplish, it's never quite good enough. You could win an award, get the promotion, or finish a creative masterpiece. And within hours, your mind is already picking apart the flaws or thinking about how it could have been better. This mindset slowly erodes the joy out of everything you do. Achievements that should feel like victories end up feeling hollow. Instead of celebrating progress, you focus on imperfections. Instead of being proud of the journey, you obsess over the ways it could have gone differently. That means even when you succeed, you still feel like you've failed in some way. This is one of the most damaging aspects of perfectionism. It robs you of the ability to enjoy your own growth. The finish line keeps moving further away, and you never allow yourself to feel like you've actually crossed it. The problem for smart people is that their intelligence makes their perfectionism more convincing. They can see all the potential ways something could be improved, so they start believing that improvement is always necessary before action can be taken. They become stuck in preparation mode, endlessly refining and tweaking instead of releasing their work into the world. This not only delays results but can completely kill opportunities. Sometimes the difference between success and failure isn't who had the best idea, it's who acted on their idea first. When perfectionists wait until everything is flawless, they often find that the moment has passed. Perfectionism also fuels fear. When your sense of worth is tied to how perfect something turns out, failure becomes unbearable. You're not just afraid of doing something wrong, you're afraid that any mistake will prove you're not as capable as people think you are. This fear can paralyze you, making it easier to avoid trying at all than to risk doing something imperfectly. The irony is that by avoiding imperfection, you avoid progress. Growth requires trial and error, but perfectionism treats error as unacceptable, which means real growth never happens. Even in relationships, perfectionism can create strain. You may hold others to the same impossibly high standards you hold yourself, which leads to disappointment when they inevitably fall short. Or you might avoid getting close to people out of fear they'll see your flaws. Over time, this can lead to isolation, as your pursuit of flawlessness leaves no room for the messiness that comes with genuine, human connection. The saddest part is that perfectionism can disguise itself as ambition. It can trick you into thinking you're simply driven, that you're pushing yourself to be better. But there's a huge difference between striving for excellence and demanding perfection. Excellence is about progress, perfection is about an impossible endpoint. Excellence motivates you to move forward. Perfection freezes you in place because nothing will ever be good enough to meet your own impossible expectations. The addiction to being right is one of the most subtle ways intelligence can work against you. For smart people, being right often feels like a confirmation of identity. It reinforces the belief that they're competent, capable, and in control. Every correct answer, every flawless argument, every moment of being proven right becomes another brick in the wall of self-assurance. But over time, this can shift from a healthy confidence into an unhealthy dependency. It stops being about understanding truth or solving problems and starts being about protecting the image of never being wrong. This creates a silent but dangerous rigidity in how you think and how you engage with the world. When you're addicted to being right, conversations stop being opportunities to learn. Instead, they become battlegrounds where the goal is to win, not to grow. Even when you encounter new information that challenges your perspective, your instinct is to defend your existing position rather than consider the possibility that you might have missed something. And because intelligence often comes with strong reasoning skills, you can construct convincing arguments for your side even if you're wrong. This doesn't just shut down learning from others. It also creates blind spots in your own thinking. You're so busy reinforcing your current beliefs that you stop testing them. This habit can affect your relationships as well. People start to notice that conversations with you feel more like debates than exchanges. Over time, they may stop sharing their honest thoughts because they anticipate being corrected, out-argued, or dismissed. That can create distance, making relationships feel strained or one-sided. It's not that you intend to push people away, but the constant need to be right sends the subtle message that their opinions are less valuable or less informed than yours. That breeds resentment and reduces the trust that relationships need to thrive. Another problem is that being addicted to being right can make failure much harder to handle. If your sense of self-worth is tied to always knowing the answer, then being wrong feels like a direct attack on who you are. Instead of seeing mistakes as a natural part of growth, you see them as evidence of weakness. This often leads to denial, deflection, or shifting blame rather than acknowledging and learning from the error. Over time, this prevents you from evolving because you're unwilling to face and embrace the lessons that come from failure. The irony is that the smartest people often have the most to gain from admitting they're wrong. Being open to correction and willing to adapt leads to sharper thinking and better decision making. But when you're trapped in the cycle of needing to be right, you're unwilling to take in the very feedback that could make you stronger. You might win arguments, but you lose opportunities for growth. You might protect your ego in the short term, but you limit your potential in the long term. This addiction can also quietly stunt creativity. Creativity thrives on exploration, on wandering into uncharted territory without the certainty of having the right answer. But if you're fixated on correctness, you avoid those unknown spaces because they carry the risk of being wrong. As a result, you stay in the realm of the familiar, repeating the same patterns and ideas instead of stretching into new possibilities. What feels like safety is actually stagnation, and the longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to break free. Boredom is one of the most overlooked challenges that intelligent people face, and it can quietly sabotage their ability to stick with anything long enough to see it through. When you have a fast mind, routine can feel suffocating. The moment something becomes predictable, your brain begins searching for novelty. That constant craving for newness may push you to jump from one idea, project, or goal to the next, always chasing the thrill of starting, but rarely experiencing the satisfaction of finishing. While others may find comfort in repetition and stability, you may experience it as a slow death of motivation, as though your energy fades with every familiar step you take. The problem is that success in most areas of life doesn't come from constant excitement. It comes from persistence, showing up day after day, even when the work feels repetitive or uninspiring. Relationships, careers, fitness goals, creative projects, personal growth, all of them require long-term commitment. But when your intelligence gives you the ability to learn quickly, the early challenges don't last long enough to keep you engaged. You master the basics, solve the obvious problems, and then face the long, slow grind that builds lasting results. That's when boredom sets in and the temptation to move on becomes overwhelming. This pattern can create a trail of unfinished work and abandoned opportunities. You may start something with great enthusiasm, pouring in energy and ideas, only to feel restless once the initial momentum fades. The early rush of progress is replaced with the steady pace of maintenance, and instead of doubling down, you drift away towards something new that promises a fresh challenge. While this keeps life interesting in the short term, it also means you rarely see the rewards that come from sustained effort. Boredom can also affect relationships. At the start, the spark of discovery feels exciting, getting to know someone, learning their quirks, exploring new experiences together. But over time, as familiarity replaces novelty, that same connection can start to feel predictable. If you're not careful, you might interpret that as a sign the relationship is no longer fulfilling, when in reality it's simply transitioning into a deeper, steadier phase that requires patience rather than constant stimulation. Walking away too soon robs you of the chance to experience the richer rewards that come from enduring bonds. Another challenge is that boredom for intelligent people often comes with a dose of self-justification. You tell yourself you're leaving because you've outgrown the situation, because you're ready for something more advanced or more worthy of your skills. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's just an excuse to avoid the discipline of staying committed. There's always something more exciting out there, but excitement doesn't guarantee growth. In fact, growth often happens in the moments that feel the least exciting, when you're pushing through monotony and developing resilience. The danger is that this cycle can become addictive. You start to rely on the high of beginning something new, the rush of possibility, the feeling that this time it will be different. But the truth is, no matter what you start, every worthwhile pursuit will eventually require the same endurance and patience you avoided before. Without learning how to manage boredom, you risk living a life full of beginnings but short on lasting achievements. Feeling misunderstood is a common experience for highly intelligent people, and over time, it can lead to a kind of isolation that feels both self-imposed and inevitable. When you think differently from most people around you, conversations can sometimes feel shallow, repetitive, or uninteresting. You may crave depth, complexity, and nuance in your interactions, but not everyone shares that hunger. This mismatch can make you feel like an outsider in everyday situations, and even when you're surrounded by others, it can still feel like you're on your own island. You stop expecting people to understand the way your mind works, and you begin keeping more of your thoughts to yourself. At first, withdrawing can feel like a form of self-preservation. If you've had moments where you've shared an idea only to be met with blank stares, quick dismissals, or even judgment, it's natural to start guarding your inner world. Why waste energy explaining yourself if it's only going to lead to misunderstanding? But over time, this habit of holding back doesn't just protect you, it isolates you. You start to participate less in group discussions, avoid certain social situations, and retreat into your own mental space where you feel safe but alone. The danger here is that isolation can become comfortable, and comfort can be deceptive. On the surface, it seems peaceful to be alone with your thoughts, free from the frustration of shallow conversation or misguided assumptions. But humans are wired for connection, and even the most independent, self-reliant person needs meaningful relationships to thrive. Without them, your world starts to shrink. Your perspective becomes more rigid because it's not being tested or expanded by interaction with others. You may feel in control, but in reality, you're cutting yourself off from experiences that could challenge and enrich your life. Isolation also affects emotional health. The absence of deep human connection can lead to feelings of loneliness, even if you don't consciously label it as such. That loneliness may be subtle at first, disguised as, "I just like being on my own," but it can slowly grow into a sense of emptiness or detachment from the world. And when you do spend time with others, you might feel disconnected, like you're only half present because you're not truly sharing yourself. The walls you built to protect yourself also block you from being seen and understood by the people who might actually appreciate you. Another cost of isolation is missed opportunity. Some of the best chances in life, whether in career, love, friendship, or personal growth, come through connection with others. By pulling away, you limit the flow of those opportunities. You might convince yourself that you're being selective, that you're just avoiding people who drain your energy, But sometimes the truth is you've become so accustomed to solitude that you're avoiding connection altogether, even with people who could be good for you. Over time, the belief that no one understands me can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The less you share, the less anyone gets to know the real you, and the less they know, the less they can understand. It's a cycle that reinforces itself until you've convinced yourself that isolation is simply your reality. In truth, breaking out of it requires risk, the risk of being misunderstood again, of having to explain yourself, of letting someone close enough to see your flaws as well as your brilliance. It's not always easy, but without taking that risk, your intelligence becomes a private treasure that no one else can share in or benefit from, leaving you brilliant but alone. Paralysis from infinite possibilities is a trap that many highly intelligent people fall into without realizing it. The smarter you are, the more options you can see in any situation. You're able to imagine dozens of potential outcomes, explore countless paths, and weigh the benefits and risks of each one. On the surface, this seems like a huge advantage because it means you're thorough and thoughtful in your decision making. But the hidden cost is that with every new option you discover, the harder it becomes to choose. Instead of narrowing down possibilities, your brain keeps expanding them, making action feel riskier and less certain. You start to wonder if you've missed something, if there's a better choice just beyond the horizon, and that constant wondering keeps you stuck in a state of hesitation. This kind of paralysis often starts with good intentions. You don't want to make a bad decision, so you try to gather as much information as possible. You research, plan, and imagine every scenario so you can be absolutely sure you're making the best possible move. But because you can always think of another variable to consider or another angle to explore, you never reach that point of certainty. The decision stays open, the action stays undone, and you're left holding an elaborate plan that never actually leaves your head. The irony is that while you're standing still, worrying about which path is best, time is moving forward. Opportunities don't wait for you to finish your analysis. They have a window, and once that window closes, no amount of careful thinking can reopen it. People with less intelligence but more decisiveness often leap ahead, not because they had the better option, but because they acted while you were still deciding. This can create a painful awareness that you're capable of great things but not actually achieving them, which can lead to frustration, regret, and even a loss of confidence. Paralysis from infinite possibilities also feeds on perfectionism. If you believe there is one right choice that will lead to success and all the others will lead to failure or disappointment, then the stakes of choosing become enormous. With so much on the line, the fear of picking wrong keeps you frozen. You wait for a sign for more clarity, for the perfect alignment of factors. But that perfect moment rarely comes. In reality, most decisions don't have one flawless option. They have several good options, each with their own trade-offs, and the real skill lies in committing to one and making it work rather than endlessly searching for the perfect one. Another consequence of this paralysis is the mental exhaustion it creates. The constant evaluation and comparison of possibilities drain your focus and energy. The more time you spend in your head weighing options, the less energy you have to take real action. By the time you've reached a point where you could decide, you may feel so mentally worn out that you convince yourself to wait until you feel ready again, which delays things even further. This cycle can last weeks, months, or even years, with ideas and ambitions stuck in the planning stage while life moves on without you. In the end, the abundance of possibilities, while intellectually stimulating, becomes a barrier to progress. It's not a lack of talent, resources, or opportunity that holds you back. It's the inability to stop searching for the best possible path and simply start walking one. The longer you stand at the crossroads, the more chances you let slip away, and the more you risk turning your intelligence into an anchor instead of a tool for forward motion.